cheers to another episode of the Weinnotes Podcast. I'm your guide, AJ Weinzettel, on this journey of stories showcasing the people behind the wonderful world of wine, where we dive into conversations ranging from terroir, viticulture, to favorite music, superpowers, and more. Please enjoy this episode of the Weinnotes Podcast. Daniel, Susan, thank you so much for taking the time today to be on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, nice to see you. I'm surprised we got some sun out here today.
Finally.
Yes.
The last time you're here, it was pouring rain, was pouring all morning.
It was.
We didn't think we'd be able to do this, but the second any nice weather comes, we're outside.
That's what we have to do. I mean, geez, we got to get outside. Shall I pour us a little bit of a blind wine to kind of start things off?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not start by embarrassing ourselves right away?
Well, you can say whatever you want to about it. You can say it's yummy. You can say it's good. Or if you want to take a deep dive, that's up to you as well.
I heard a funny thing about blind tasting that I feel is very much me. I haven't made a mistake in a blind tasting wine
Right.
since the last time I did it.
That's amazing. You know, I haven't made any mistakes like that either. Actually, on Saturday, I was downtown and they were doing like a Syrah, Oregon Syrah tasting. And then they had a mystery wine at the end. And, it kind of followed the appropriate theme. And it was blind. And I was totally humbled, as I am always humbled by a blind wine. So let me hand this to you. And again, say whatever you want to. You're welcome. Thank you.
And so did it end up being a Syrah?
Yeah, it was a Côte d'Aron
Okay.
Syrah. And, obviously it wasn't Oregon. And it was it's fascinating to just dive deep into the unknown.
Sure.
Yeah. So normally with blind wines, I try to find some sort of connection to who I'm interviewing.
Oh.
I don't know if there's a connection here or not, but we'll see. Sometimes I do pretty good. Sometimes I don't do so good.
Well.
It's definitely a sparkling rosé.
Chin chin, right?
Yes,
We're
yes.
glad you're here.
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasant.
Yes.
Lovely.
Well, good. I'm glad you like. When I was out here last May, what just completely stands out to me in my mind is the level of enthusiasm that you have about wine. I mean, you've been in the wine world forever, and this isn't a derogatory statement, but you're almost like a giddy little kid in a toy store, and I love that excitement.
Yeah. That's the thing. I wish I could say that it's new because we're here now, but it's really been like that our whole lives. Yeah.
Right. I can only imagine.
She always
just
keeps
in
it
there.
interesting. Every day is a new adventure with this one.
Right. Yeah. And it should be. I mean, life is so full of adventure and possibilities, and there's so much to learn. Like, yeah, just I adore that. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, think of all the subjects that we get to cover when we're talking about wine, whether it be history or commerce or science, winemaking, art. The label design is like a major, exciting, crazy up and down story for us too. I mean, all of these subjects can provide you with many lifetimes of things to learn about and study.
Right.
All of which are fascinating. So
They are. And the story for the both of you started off in South Florida with French drama and poetry.
This is
Like,
true.
how did that, what was that influence for the both of you at such a young age?
I'll start by answering this. I was a French major. I had gone to France my sophomore year. I stayed in Paris for 3 months, and I just became completely enamored with everything French. So then I was on a quest. I wanted to become a French teacher. I wanted to move to France for a while. And part of that quest, I was in French drama and poetry. So the first day of class, Danny walks in and it's a small class. There weren't a lot of people interested in this topic, I guess. And there were maybe 12 people around a table, all of which were female, except Danny. He comes in and he had had a water skiing accident that morning and had a Band-Aid across his head. And he had been in France studying abroad. And that's why he was also in French drama and poetry. So we came together and that's how we met.
That's awesome.
There was only one seat available left because I was a minute or two late.
Mm-hmm.
And it was next to Susie. So,
And so, I mean, he was in his early 20s and he already had a love of wine at that time. So our entire relationship together, wine has been a part, even at that young age, because he was working at a French restaurant in Florida, and he was hanging out with a lot of older French men who were all into Bordeaux and
Right.
teaching him.
yeah.
Yep. So
Teaching all the things.
mhm.
That's fun.
Plus, I ended up, when I was junior year abroad before this class, I got invited to go to a wine tasting. And a friend called and said, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "I don't know, let's do something." And they said, "Let's go to a wine tasting in Beaune." So I ended up at the Hospice de Beaune auction.
I was getting ready to ask you, how in the heck did that accidentally happen?
It wasn't my doing at all. It was completely like that, just out of nowhere. And so from there, I got a chance to like taste some really interesting wines. I met some Air France pilots who were collectors of all the good stuff.
Right.
So we went to sit on the wall at DRC drinking the wines, went to dinner to all kinds of crazy Michelin star places. And that event
Right.
shook me. So when I went back to college, where I was going to finish business school and maybe go to law school, I got a job at a French restaurant and everybody was French. And the guy that owned it was in the wine business too. So there I was only months after being in Burgundy, getting a chance to taste, all 10 Cru Beaujolais.
Oh, darn.
So, I mean, just from then on, it's been a lifetime of study and business.
Right.
Yeah.
Did your parents get upset when you dropped law to go for wine?
Well,
I may have not been their favorite for a little while.
Little. By little, I mean a lot. I mean, it was literally enrolled in law, getting ready to go to law school. And
Right.
Ended up being instead sell all my stuff and buy a one-way to chase my then girlfriend, now wife,
Right.
to France, where we ended up spending 4 years.
Yeah, I had moved to France to get better at French so I could become this French teacher. And he was going to stay back in the States and go to law school. And I happened to get stationed right almost on the border of Champagne and Bourgogne. So I was in a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere, right in this wine area. And so he just dropped everything and surprised me. I didn't know he was coming and knocks on the door.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So then we ended up staying for almost 4 years.
that's stuff that poetry itself is made out of right there.
It was.
It's pretty dramatic, right? Even though it was us, it's still dramatic. I guess it sounds dramatic. If it's you, it doesn't seem like that.
Right. It was like, oh, that was just my
It's
life.
you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
So he ended up going to University of Bourgogne in Dijon and going to wine school there. And we lived about 100 kilometers north of Dijon. And he would hitchhike to school every day that he went. It wasn't every day, but when he did,
Right.
I needed the car for my job. He would hitchhike to
Hitchhiking
wine
was
school.
Yeah.
And, this was the early 90s?
Yeah.
And I guess it was a little more prevalent then. I don't know.
It was a little bit more laid back then, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it was France. I mean, I think it's hitchhiking since we've been kids has been something. Although when I was a kid, my parents picked up hitchhikers a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. No.
Nowadays, it seems like something you wouldn't do, but
Right. Yeah. No, you watch the movie The Hitcher with Rutger Hauer in it. And you're like, oh, dang, I'm not picking up any hitchhikers.
Well, he
didn't
would
go
bring
well.
the truckers back to the apartment. And we'd have to make them dinner on the way back.
these were great guys, fascinating guys.
I'm sure there were some great stories. Was there anything that like comes to mind of like one of the truckers and like their stories and like how?
No, they were all like, you wouldn't think that was the fun part about, especially being in this rural part of France. Like, did so much to sort of remove the mysticism or the fanciness of how wine is perceived in the United States.
Right.
Like every person that delivers the mail or all the auto mechanics, all the guys that were truck drivers, they were all like loved wine, knew about wine. And the second that they knew or learned that I was doing wine in France, the discussion the floodgates opened.
Oh, I can
And
imagine.
how do you not then invite them to dinner?
You have to.
They just gave me a ride.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
You got to pay a guy back.
you do. You do. Yeah.
And I didn't have a cell phone, so it wasn't like as if I could call my wife and say, I'm bringing somebody. But by the
Yeah.
third or fourth time, it became a normal thing.
It's like, okay, we'll probably have guests over tonight.
Right.
No, that's great. That's great. And then you came back to the States, to Chicago.
But there was something in between there. So,
okay.
yeah, by year 4, we signed teaching contracts to teach English again. But then after wine school, I asked my prof to get me a job for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And he called his childhood best friend who made his wine for him and who also farmed his vineyards, and asked him whether he needed help for the summer.
Right.
And he said, bring him tomorrow. So the next morning after my final exams in Dijon,
Right.
he drove me to a small, tiny town called Courty-Vergy. I can't believe I'm saying that, the name of this town in this interview. It's amazing. That had back then 70 inhabitants
Holy cow.
in the Haute-Côte-de-Nuit. And so I went there, and the first day I was dropped right in the vineyards with Louis, who was like a Yul Brenner type in the vineyards. A guy in his 65 years old, actually by hand hedging the vineyards.
Holy cow.
And Eve unrolls his window as we're driving by and to check on Louis. And Louis says, Louis, how we doing, Louis? He says, couldn't be better. It's like Club Med out here. And so then I spent the summer there, and instead of going back to teach English, he wanted me to stay, and I was not going anywhere by then. I wasn't about to go and teach English again.
Right.
When I had found what I wanted to do for a living.
Wow.
And so I stayed there for another year or so, and then did harvest in 93 and finished the 92s. And, I was the low man on the totem pole. So There was a lot of, all the great jobs that you do in a vineyard and a winery that I don't look at as hard work. Well, it's hard work.
It is hard work,
Yeah.
but it's gratifying. Yeah.
And so stayed there for a year, and then my visa ran out, and
And the letter came.
And then the letter came, and we got a letter saying, "Dear Mr. Kleiman, thank you for applying to be a vineyard worker, cellar worker here in the Côte d'Or. But we have," and then there was a little underline where they typed in, I think the number was 300.
372 or something like that.
There's 318 French people who are unemployed in this county, in this department,
Right.
who will get that job before you get it. Denied. You want to teach English? Be our guest. Stay as long as you want. Otherwise, time to go.
Oh.
So literally, it was time to go.
Yep.
So we left. I left first. And by then, we could have stayed. We thought we would be in France maybe still.
I mean, we were planning on living there forever.
Right.
And then when that got ripped out from under him, he just very strongly felt like, I can't work and invest my life in a place where they could just on a dime make me leave.
Right.
So he
Which
came
is the-
back
that's
to
how it
Chicago,
works.
which is where he was born. That's how he went back to Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I wrapped up our affairs there and finished my contract. And
Wow.
And then we came back home
mhm.
and then got in the business. And then we had one kid and then another one and then a bigger job. And I'm traveling to France and in the wine business, which I loved.
Right.
All the while, every couple of years, dragging first one kid, then two, then three from Mendocino to Anderson Valley and to Oregon a few times.
Right.
Looking for a property.
And to France and Greece. And we looked at vineyard all over the
We've
place.
been looking for this to come and move and make wine and have a vineyard.
Right. Right.
Since 1995 when we left.
That is quite a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it takes some people longer than others.
It's okay. So why did you go into the industry as like a distributor / importer instead of like into winemaking?
Well, I was from Chicago, and by then, as a vineyard worker and a French teacher, you make very little money. So I came back home and got a job as a sommelier. And because my family was from Chicago, I thought, oh, well, I'll get a restaurant job, I'll get a sommelier job, and I'll get in the business for a little bit, and then I'll go to wine country and make it happen. Well, that was the thing.
Okay.
It took.
Yeah. Well, and you got to take care of the family too. So you got to have some.
And his job was hard to leave. He loved his job. You had a good living. It was dependable.
Right.
And you kind of get in that mode, and then you have children who have they're at different phases of life in their school, and we can't move Elliot now, and
Right. Right.
and so, and then there was, then by the time we realized, I mean, we knew forever since our 20s that this is what we eventually wanted to do.
Right.
But, we didn't have the money to do it. So we saved and saved and saved. And finally, our youngest daughter graduated high school in 21.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, and then we kind of did what we had done before. We sold all of our stuff
Mm-hmm.
and bought a one-way
And
a small vineyard in the Coast Range.
Right.
Which is
And COVID too kind of went, was difficult, and, it makes you question, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
Time is precious. We're not getting younger. This is not an old man's game to start this.
Right.
We're already getting up there. So it's kind of like all the stars started to align for us to finally do it.
Yeah. And, as you're saying all this, I'm remembering that Pixar movie, of the old man who went on a journey to the falls place. I can't remember it, but it was, the couple saved up a bunch of money, and then, they get a flat tire. Then they had to break the piggy bank. She eventually, passes away. And so their dream together didn't actually happen.
Oh yeah.
But to see up, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Not a dry eye in the place from that one.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. No, not a dry eye. If you don't mind, can we take a small tangent? I'm curious about being a distributor.
Sure.
There's a couple restaurants that I am aware of in like the Washington area. They're like, ooh, we'd like to get some Oregon wine, but they don't have like a distributor. And I'm like, ooh, well, maybe I could just apply to be a distributor and just kind of help out some people here and there and whatnot. But I don't know. I mean, it seems much more complicated than that. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
there's the forced 3-tier system where
Right.
you have to have a wholesaler and to sell to a licensed restaurateur or retailer. So the government sort of mandates that.
Right.
And that makes it complicated. It makes it so a lot of times distributors, where there's been more and more consolidation over the last 25 years,
Right.
where there used to be, when I started, lots of small independent distributors
Right.
that would get a phone call from a small winery around here, for example,
Right.
and would taste the wine, love the wine, and say, let's do it. And then they would have distribution.
Right.
Well, over the years, it's become a bigger business, and there's been so much, like in all industries
Right.
in the United States,
Right.
consolidation has made it so that smaller guys might have a more difficult time finding distributors.
Okay.
But it's so you, to get it going, you might have to have inventory and warehousing and salespeople and
Right.
there's some
Delivery systems.
delivery systems. There's investments to be made. A lot of times you could start small, and you see this all the time. There's a guy who might start up an import business or a distribution business because his uncle makes wine in Italy, and he brings over 25 cases from his uncle, and so it can be
Right.
done that way.
Right.
But over time, people want to make a business out of it.
Of
At
course.
one point, the investments are not always small.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I was just kind of curious. I knew you had more of a background on that. And I was just doing a little bit of research. So I was
Sure.
just, picking your brain a little bit. Oh my gosh. So you made, like, while you're up in Chicago, like, you made wine out of your garage, and you ended up getting like 100-year-old, French press or Italian press. How did you come about that?
Well, I had a buddy who, Italian guy whose family was in the produce business, Tony Stallone, who I was seeing for business for that. Getting dog hair all over me. And I asked him what he's doing this weekend. He says, he inherited an old wine press. A friend of his inherited an old wine press.
Right.
And so they were going to go, and one time they made it out of grapes, and then they bought some concentrated grape juice.
Right.
They made wine out of it. And I said, let me tag along, having been in France only a year or two prior.
Right.
And so I tagged along, and it was very rudimentary, and it was me and two guys making wine in a garage. And but Chicago was fun because they have, there's a whole Little Italy where a lot of just off the boat families
Right.
would go and contract to get grapes delivered from like the Central Valley of California. And so there would be literally in the fall, there'd be a couple of containers worth of Central Valley fruit that would arrive in containers in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. And so we'd go down there to pick our grapes,
Right.
pick our fruit that was picked for us probably a week or two prior.
Right.
And then, and so there was basically, a lot of old school Chicago Italians on this container, smoking cigarettes and cigars in the container.
Of course.
And there's me with my refractometer, checking on the ripeness and then, so we poisoned our friends with this, with the homemade wine over the years a lot.
Right.
And we still have some here that we'll send you home with a bottle, or maybe we'll open them. But
Scary.
it's scary. But, but it was fun, and it was, it was good to get the kids. We made the kids do all the hard work.
Right.
Yeah. And
It kept the fire alive,
kept the fire going.
That is great.
Yeah. It was a tradition between families too. It was great.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask, but I think you already answered the question. Is like, how did you coordinate getting grapes from California onto the train to Chicago?
Oh yeah. No, that was
that was
already baked in the cake.
Right.
Chicago that way, they've been doing that for years. So that was already there for us.
Do you think that is still happening today?
Oh, it is. It is.
Wow.
In fact, the son of one of the guys that we did it with, I do it with him on the phone. He calls me.
Right.
And from the actual container saying, Dan, what do you think of these grapes? And we're looking through together, and it's
right.
I mean, it's pretty funny. I mean,
that would be hilarious.
Zinfandels and Kerrigans
but still, that's the exact polar opposite of like what we see here. But that's what you got to do, and that's just that's amazing.
Yeah, we've stepped up our game, but the fundamentals apply.
Of course, yeah. No, definitely, you got to have all the fundamentals. So you talked about looking land throughout all throughout the world. Were there some properties that you had your eye on? And it's like, ooh, we can do this, and then like the rug got pulled out from underneath you, or like were there times that it was like super close that you're getting ready to purchase another property?
The one that I really think of,
There was a couple that were close over the years.
the one that I can really think of was, should I say it? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And, right next door to where Granville is was a
Mm.
property called Fuqua.
Okay.
It's not called that anymore. But if you go up the Granville Drive, right
Right.
on the left, there was this vineyard right there.
Oh,
And we were very interested in that. Like, what was that, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Or maybe 12. It was maybe even 15. I don't know. Time's flying.
10
for
to
me now.
15 years. Yeah. Yeah.
A long time ago. And we were, I mean, we weren't to where we were ready to sign a contract, but we really dove deep into that one. And then,
And that got us ready to keep doing it until we were actually, you know, a lot of times you say, oh, we're not ready yet. You don't have the money. No. When you make a decision to do something,
Right.
that's when you're ready. And so all the other times might have been more than just kicking tires, but that's what they ended up being. So
Right.
it wasn't really until till the fires of 2020 during COVID that we came out again. We were supposed to come in September of 2020, but everything was on fire. And so United canceled our flight.
Oh,
Yeah. And we
right.
couldn't come until the next month. So we came in October of 2020 and saw that time we saw another dozen properties after seeing almost that many a handful of other times over the years.
Right.
And that's how we came across this site. Yeah.
mhm. There was one other time though that we were very serious. We were going to try to purchase the property in France where he had worked.
Wow.
The gentleman that owns that property has been almost like a father figure to him. I mean, like they talk every week still. Like they're very tight to this day.
That's amazing.
And he didn't have a child to take over that wanted to do that business.
To make the wine part.
To make the wine part. And so we looked very, very deeply into that. But it got very complicated with the taxation system and the legalities of it. And again, we weren't quite at the right place in life yet to be able to pull that off. So that one got canceled too.
With what's happening in Burgundy over the last 10 years, for however expensive that was at the time, probably cheap compared to where it would be now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
I know. And we feel like now too in the oat coat with climate change and such, and it's higher and cooler, it might be a really great spot, but we're not there.
Nope. You are
We're
here.
here.
Yes. And what was your first impression when you came here?
Well, the couple things. First of all, the drive up is quite exciting. It's you kind of realize that you've left the main part of the Willamette Valley where there's hundreds of vineyards and wineries.
Right.
And so we're off the beaten path here at Lonesome Rock. So that was beautiful. But really it was pretty scary because we saw smoke. And in fact, because it was October and not all the grapes were picked.
Right.
We stood up there.
Almost none of the grapes were picked here. They let them hang.
Yeah, we have put this video before we even, months before we ended up buying Lonesome Rock. We have the video on our website of the birds going crazy and eating the fruit. Yeah.
I'm sure they were very happy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It was a good day for them.
Yeah.
So, the decision, there's so much that go into, deciding what vineyard site you want, and so much that goes into the putting together of a business plan to put this together. And one of the things that was that made it scary was that it's so far off the beaten path. With
Right.
so many of the other great producers, small, big, that are so near each other.
Right.
There's such an advantage that they have about, proximity to other famous places. And so that, for us, there were other great vineyards that had possibilities that we were looking at.
Right.
But it ended up being the vineyard site and the wines made from this type of site that Lonesome Rock is, that made us say, if we're going to do it, we have to pick it based on wine that we want to make.
Right.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
We bought this from Scott Baldwin, who is from DuPont.
Yes, I am aware of
Yes.
that. Yes.
And so we tasted through, before we even came up to the property, we tasted through every single vintage of Lonesome Rock DuPont that we could find, as well as the other vineyards.
Yeah, there's a
the
handful of
other
other
wineries that bought from here, which was DeLille, Betts, Sunu up in Washington.
Right.
So we tried to taste as many wines as possible before we even came to see, and we fell in love with the wine right off the bat before we even saw the property. So there was a level of comfort already in the quality of the site,
hmm
before we stepped foot. And then, I got here, and to me it was perfect. I felt home immediately. I know
the wine part was both comforting and scary at the same time. Why? Because even though we tasted a lot of wines made from here, and we knew what we wanted in terms of flavor profile and elevation and cool nights and all the things that make Lonesome Rock unique.
Correct.
We knew we wanted that, but all the wines that we had tasted were made from the original old plantings that are right behind us, which is half the vineyard. So even though you might think you know what a vineyard's going to give because you taste the wines, it was all from the old blocks,
Right.
which is only half of the acreage of Pinot Noir here at Lonesome Rock. So if you go west, the last vineyard west, I guess, I don't think there's anybody further west than us here.
Right.
up here. And we had never tasted the Chardonnay.
And the Chardonnay was only planted in 2016. So, and there's an acre of Pinot Meunier that was never made in anything. So in terms of the rolling of the dice, you're never going to know everything.
No, there's no way.
It was time, and we just,
You just did it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So normally I wait until the end to do the reveal on the blind wine, but I thought we might kind of taste into your wine as well.
Sure.
So any guesses or anything, or you just want me to kind of like?
No, it's pretty. It's well made. It's got great acidity. There's like a coppery color on the edge here that makes me think that it might have been, have a couple of years in the bottle. I don't know. Could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things.
I know I like it. That's all I think for sure.
And that's all that matters. So this is Corollary's Lonesome Rock Sparkling, 2018.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I then might be some of the only people that have a lot of this left, or any of it left.
I think this is I might have one more bottle. I think that might be it.
Well, thanks for spoiling us.
That is a treat.
Yeah.
I think we've only tasted it once or twice.
Twice, two times
ever.
Right. Oh my goodness.
The Corollary, because we couldn't get any. So.
Right.
But we have bottles though. And as soon as we saw that it sold out fast, we're like, we got to lock this up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have a few bottles left, but
Good.
I think they also made magnums of this that I'm going to try to get my hands on.
That would be nice. Yeah.
That we should saber over that side, I think.
Sign me up. I'll be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Dee, you brought up the 22?
Yeah.
So you'll be the very first person to ever taste that.
Ooh. Well, talk about being lucky.
So this is exciting.
Right.
So 2022 vintage was our second harvest here. And there's some sort of milestones at Lonesome Rock. The 21 was our first vintage, and that has a portion of the vineyard that wasn't in prior blends from the furthest west piece. And then this is one of the first things we did when we were here, actually even before we even closed, was to graft over some Calera Pinot, which didn't make a lot of fruit, nor was it particularly compelling.
Okay.
So one of the clones that wasn't planted here was Vadensville, which we've liked over the years. And so we got some cuttings of the best, oldest vines from DuPont and brought them down to OSU and grafted those.
Nice.
And so in 21, we didn't get any fruit from that because we had just grafted it then.
Right.
And so this wine is going to be the first wine from Lonesome Rock that will have the Vadensville in there.
Wow.
So that's exciting.
That is very exciting.
And 50. But that was in the 21.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, no, I very vividly remember tasting the 21 Pinot the first time when I was up here last year. And I was just totally sucked into the wine. And like nobody else existed outside of my little bubble. And, you know, I looked up and you were kind of looking at me and I'm like, damn, this is good, right? Because I just kind of forgot that there was other people around me. I just got lost in it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
felt
we
very
felt lucky.
fortunate.
We felt
Yeah.
lucky. 21s are just in general so great, so young, so pretty, so open.
Yes,
And thank you.
of course. And on this, I'm loving the nose on this. It is, it just grabs you right immediately. All that dark fruit. I love the dark fruit.
22s are big. I don't know that we've tasted this. We've been tasting this, and I don't know that it's as ready for release as the 21s. Drank so great, so
Mhm.
young. But I think this one will last maybe even longer. It'd be great 22s.
Yeah.
We're excited.
And again, holy cow. There's just wave after wave of intensity of fruit and spice and everything on that. I really appreciate that. Do you think the 22s are a little bit bigger and bolder because of all the long hang time? Because, you know, it was quite a long harvest.
Yeah, we're late to begin with here anyway, and so we're we did a couple different picks,
Right.
and all the way up until October 21st.
Holy cow.
So we needed, we needed that hang time that late.
Right.
And the rains sort of came almost right immediately afterwards. And it was more, even though it was our second harvest, it was, the worries about the weather
Of course. It's stressful.
have not waned at all.
Unbelievable.
Yes, I can only
Fires
imagine.
and frost and rain. It's just
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, when you're
it's probably gonna sound weird that we're still blown away by the ups and downs but I think that's what it's all about, right?
It is. It is. I mean, even like when I spoke to Jackson at Granville early last year, we were talking about the frost, and he's been in the industry forever, and he talked to his dad about the frost, and I mean, he was still like blown away by the weather, and like his dad was like, "Yeah, no, we've never seen frost like that ever."
Yeah. As you know, we make our Chardonnay with Jackson.
Exactly. That's why I
Yeah.
brought it up. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's farmed here years before he started making his own wine, so he knows Lonesome Rock pretty intimately. And the frost event, we went. We were out there the night before. We looking at the weather,
Hmm.
and their Pinot had just started to bud out, I guess, more in the valley, and our Pinot Noir buds were sleeping. So
Right.
Yeah, because
I guess we're lucky for that.
Start 7 to 10 days later than everybody else.
Yeah.
So we were a little bit more protected.
But Chardonnay had the green point vert, the green point
Oh.
on there. So
Just a little
we
bit.
got a little nervous there, and we actually even grabbed some of the buds off of there and sliced them open.
Right.
See what this
What's
looks
going
like.
on? Right.
And they were, thank God there weren't that many of them, but
Right.
but a few of them did have sort of a gray, little bit of a burn. It's what it is, right? A burn.
Right.
And so, of course, we're looking at social media and talking to other winemakers, and everybody thinks it's going to be, especially for the valley that's ahead of us,
Right.
thought it was going to really smash the the harvest in terms of quantity for Pinot.
Right. But it wasn't. I mean, those secondary and tertiary, buds just came through and like there was extra fruit.
Extra fruit. It's crazy.
Here we get low yields here, in the soil here, and we have great water drainage here, and we're late harvest, so we can't carry that huge of a crop here anyway.
Right.
And the historic yields here we've never gotten over 2.5 tons an acre here. And the biggest harvest on record ever from this property ended up being the one where there might not be any fruit. So I don't know. You would think that would make us then not freak out every time there's going to be a potential danger.
But this is your baby. Of course you're going to freak out. I mean, I would.
Plus, we're here. We live here.
Right.
So we get a chance to check on it.
It's in our face every day.
Yep. Exactly. Earlier, you were talking about, stories and everything. You said that there was even like the label on your wine, there was such a story and intricate detail about the label. I have not heard the story behind the label.
Well, we originally...
You want to take that one, honey?
Sure. We wanted something really personal and something, that looked like Oregon to us and looked organic, and we just couldn't land on something. We had originally hired someone who was very talented, and I love her work, but we ended up veering away from the designs that she did for us because it just didn't feel like us. It just didn't feel quite right, even though some of them were very beautiful. So our son, who is 23 at the time, I think, came and he was living with us, and he saw us agonizing over the label, and he goes, "I'm going to find something right now. we're going to get inspired." And so he started trying just to look for artists that he liked. And he actually found a tattoo artist that had done some interesting drawings, and they kind of resonated with us. And one of them, we decided, we have a ginkgo on the property, first of all. And we kind of started thinking about this ginkgo and all of the symbolism behind a ginkgo tree, about longevity and uniqueness and healing properties and that type of thing. And it kind of felt like something that could represent how we felt about this place. And then we came across this snake, which was, we had many late night conversations in bed. Like, are we actually going to put a snake on the label? Like something that repulses a lot of people, but
yeah, let's put something on our label that's the most universal symbol of something that makes people
recoil.
So we're supposed to ask people to reach out and grab something that has a snake on it. So at 3 a.m, these are the things that...
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to overthink it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when we looked at some of the really, really old and ancient meanings that people put behind snakes, one of them was that they were a guardian of a sacred space.
Right.
And we felt like this was a sacred space to us. And it happens to be that the very first living thing besides a human that we saw in here was a snake down by a spring that we have down there.
Wow.
And it kind of just came together, and it looked cool in there, visually, and the meaning behind both of those things resonated with us.
We agonized more over the label design than we did. We knew about the vineyard. We knew that was the wine we wanted to make.
Right.
And then if so much of Pinot Noir is the vineyard, right?
Right.
What's the other thing that is so important? Being in the business, I've seen so many great wines fail because of packaging.
Right.
And then I've seen so many maybe less than great wines succeed
because of the packaging.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and then we put the crimson on the Pinot because we plant crimson in between the rows, like a lot of people in Oregon do. And, it's one of the things that helps us be organic. And so that's where the crimson came from.
That's amazing. I will honestly say I did not notice the snake until you mentioned it, and looking at it right this very second. So
Well,
it's
and
very.
you've had this wine a couple times.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm very familiar with the label.
We wanted it to be,
Yeah,
we're not trying to be provocative by putting a snake on our label.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not,
Right.
Right. So
Oh,
the
there's the
tattoo
tongue.
artist, kind of came up with the configurations, and then I did the coloration and I created the labels. But I added a couple more leaves and stuff because I started getting scared about the snake.
Right. No, I get that.
To make it not be in your face, but just a little nod to,
right.
It's a risk. This is a risky business, and the snake to me also represented this element of risk and
we went
an
from
edge to it.
Yeah,
Right.
we went from can we really put this on there to we have to put this on. Now we have to.
You have to.
We
Yeah.
like it, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
And to see a snake up here,
Yep.
I mean, that's really odd.
So there's a spring here that's super deep.
Okay.
And as we're pulling up in the U-Haul from Chicago, Susie says, "Guess what the first thing you're going to do is?" And I said, "Well, I've got a list." And she says, "You're going to put a fence around the spring so the dogs don't get in there." And I said, "No, I'm not. We've got labs. They have webbed feet.
I'm not afraid that
They're
can't
like
swim,
fish."
Right.
but it goes down almost 40 feet. And if they get in there, there's no way that they
It's-
can get out.
It's dangerous.
And I
Right.
was going to be here by myself for a couple of months while he went back to Chicago to wrap up his, our life there.
Right.
And I was going to be here alone with the dogs. And I could just see, because this one, Juno will go after every ball. The ball goes down the spring and she's at the bottom of a 40-foot pit. And I'm here by myself without cell phone. No, the fence is going in.
I thought, of course, I'm not making, but of course, that was the first thing I was doing.
Right.
And then literally getting off with the sledgehammer and shovels,
Right.
getting off to be right by there. There was a snake that went right through my legs.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Literally day one.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe that's kismet. Maybe we thought we.
No,
Wait.
that's pretty amazing. I interviewed Andy Lytle, like my third or fourth episode, and he talked a lot about legacy. And I'm just like anybody that I interview that has kids, I have to talk about legacy a little bit now. Like, have you given thought to like what kind of legacy you want to leave for your kids?
Well, I'll say something real quick.
Sure.
We didn't want to also saddle our children with the burden of, oh, now I've got to go into the wine business.
Of course. Right. A lot of people think that way. Right.
But we would love to leave this for any of them that wants it.
Right.
Our
Yeah.
son,
We made the decision without sort of knowing that eventually that would come to that, but without knowing that there was a for sure thing.
Right.
Which is good. I mean, they even though they grew up in the business and they grew up, making wine in the garage, it's a different thing once you get out here and you live on a vineyard. So
It's totally different. Yeah.
We hoped they would and
Yeah.
find interest in. The first year, our son, we got Elliot a job with DuPont making the wine with us with Isabel.
Right.
And so he had Isabel working with Isabel for the
That's
first
awesome.
few months, which is good training.
Yes.
And then
and our nephew came too.
and our nephew too. And then his second year, he went to Durant and did harvest with those guys there, and then just did harvest at Resonance, and now is studying viticulture enology at Washington State.
That's amazing.
So
He
all
came
of this
here-
happened in the last couple of
Yeah. Well, we moved here and our kids were in Chicago. Like they're Chicago kids.
Right.
All three of them have moved out.
That's awesome.
All three of them. The little one goes to University of Oregon. She's doing her study abroad junior year in France right now. So she's loving it.
That's
and
gonna
then
make you
our
feel
oldest
proud.
one moved to Portland. She's having a baby next month.
Oh.
And then the middle one, Elliot, he had done 2 years of college during COVID and he really just was not into it. Like it was all on Zoom. He wasn't feeling it. He didn't know what he wanted to do. So he took a pause and said, Mom, Dad, I'm moving out to Oregon with you guys. I'm just going to work and see if I like the industry. So he did for 3 years, and
Yeah,
now
and we don't want to be overbearing as saying this, like you're
No.
doing this.
No, you can't.
he's
It's
way
you
into
can't
it,
make
though.
somebody want something.
No, you
Yeah.
can't.
He's way into it now, big time.
So it's exciting.
So we're very happy for him, and he's thriving up there. And
That is very exciting. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. When can I expect some Lonesome Rock sparkling?
Ooh, good question. So Pinot Meunier,
Mhm.
full acre right there.
Yeah.
And in 22 we took a little over a ton from there, and a little over a ton from the coolest spot at Lonesome, right behind us.
Right.
And put a Blanc de Noir on tirage last April.
Oh,
22.
okay.
So we'll see you, I don't know, in 36 months or so.
I think
Okay.
26 we said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right times pass. And then we did that again in 23. So, you know,
Ooh.
this spot should make sparkling,
Well, I mean, we just had some sparkling.
right?
Right.
We know.
I enjoyed it.
And with Pinot Meunier, there's no reason why we shouldn't be making that. So
No,
Yeah.
I mean, you could do Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Meunier. I mean, you got everything just
there's
right here.
options. There's options. Not a
Yeah.
lot of acres of any of these things, but still really interesting blending
Yes.
choices
Yes.
here.
Well, that is cool. So is Isabel making the sparkling?
Yes. Well, the base wine, and then
Right.
it's at with Andrew Lytle at
Oh, Radiant?
Yep.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So in a year, a little over 2 years, we'll be once again maybe
Yeah, I
we'll
can't wait for
savor
that.
over the deck too.
That I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have one more exciting little wine.
Sure. Should I get it?
Yeah. Well, you can just tell.
So when we were so the property I worked at in France is called Domaine Yves Chalet et Fille and Daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the first vineyard that I got dropped off in, where I saw Louis,
Mm-hmm.
was their Aligoté vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was there for the daughter's birthday a couple of years ago, we blended some Aligoté from a couple of different tanks and some concrete too, and made an Aligoté from the property I worked at for
Oh
a
my-
couple of years in France.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so we made 50 cases of that, and so
That's
it just
exciting.
arrived at our warehouse
We'll show
Wow.
you. It's
last
here.
week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So Aligoté from Curty-Vergy, the same little town that we lived in. Yeah. So that's exciting.
That's like full circle right
Yeah,
there.
right?
Yeah. That's amazing.
And there might be more. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Did you know? Will there be more?
Have you learned any more about your Ukraine olive trees over the last year?
Except we've learned more. We've learned more that wasn't olives for last harvest. There was, 20 individual types.
And there's 77 trees.
And there's 77 trees. So
Oh,
we love them, and we love having, lots of different types of plants.
Right.
And life out here at Lonesome. But as far as, wouldn't it be great to have Lonesome Rock olive oil?
it would be amazing. Yeah, it's
I don't know.
That's not happening right now.
It doesn't seem like
that's
it.
happening.
It doesn't.
Look, if Oregon is just marginal for olive trees to begin with, and then we're at one of the coolest spots, high elevation, late ripening spots, I
Right.
don't know that it's the right thing for
Probably isn't, but still, it's fun to dabble in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we, I run over the irrigation lines with the tractor, and it's providing lots of work,
Right.
but not olives yet.
Okay. All right. The other thing that you talked about when I was here was trying to get a barrel from one of the trees here on site.
Yeah.
Any?
Yeah. That's kind of fun.
Right.
We had, as you could see, they could see this oak, right?
Maybe, possibly, yeah.
There's a handful of, and we joined the Oak Alliance. What's it called?
I don't remember.
Yeah. For the preservation of savanna oaks in Oregon.
Yes.
And so there's a handful of dozen or so couple 100-year-old plus oak trees here, and we lost one in the storm of November of 21, actually.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so we
Huge
took part of the tree to make some slabs, for some tables.
Right.
But then the heart we brought there's a Cooper in McMinnville,
That'll be it.
Rip
Okay.
Ferrari. Yeah.
They're drying out.
And so we made staves,
Right.
and they're aging as we speak outside.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll Cooper a barrel there when it's ready, probably in a year or so.
okay.
And
All
we'll
right.
probably do a special cuvee with that.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah. I
Yes.
already got the label done.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so we're trying to taste every wine we can that's made from. There's not a ton. It's more and more of a thing. Oregon oak people are exploring that, but there's not
Right.
a ton of wine. So we're what could be more fun than trying to make wine from a site that's unique and that's far away from. There's not another vineyard within miles of here.
Right.
And then ferment it and age it in oak that's been here for a couple 100 years.
That's special.
Appeals to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
It appeals to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some rapid fire questions and I'll get you out of here.
Okay.
All right. Favorite harvest. Good gosh. Favorite artist to listen to during harvest.
Favorite artist to listen to? Black Sabbath Electric Funeral. That's the most.
I'm more like a Decemberist kind of girl.
Right. Okay.
Love that too.
Favorite indulgent food.
Ooh. I love crab cakes.
Okay. Nice.
Love crab cakes. Favorite indulgent food. Rillettes de porc. Pork rillettes. We've tried making it a few times and we're working on it.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
Yes. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
I thought flying.
I would
first,
say
although I
fly.
always loved
That's what I'm-
Aquaman the most, but I'd love to be able to fly.
I would say the same.
That would be
Kind of
nice.
boring.
No, it's not that boring. I don't know if you have any harvest notes, but if you do, are they digital or handwritten?
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some stuff that we write, like recording our own degree days.
Right.
We've got to get a weather station though, so a lot of it's not exact, but it's from our own sort of thermometers on the
Right.
property. But so it's both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last book you read, or it could be like an Audible or a podcast.
Sure. I just started Grape Stories by Alan. Is it Grape Stories?
Oh, by
Yeah,
Alan
I
Holst.
love that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
It's
great
right there.
book. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a great book.
That's the last book I've also picked up, but I didn't finish it yet.
Yeah.
Before that, I read All the Light We Cannot See.
Okay. Yeah. No, the Alan Holstein book I really like. That was good. And I haven't read.
Did you finish it?
Yes. Yeah. No,
I'm in the middle of it.
it was really good. I appreciated it a bunch. Well, as we wrap up, do you have any questions or anything for me that you'd like to ask?
Yeah.
How did you get into this?
So I was a member at a winery for 4 or 5 years, and I
Which
didn't
one?
Domaine Serene,
Sure.
and I had thoroughly explored everything that they had. I loved it, but I was like, there's so much around here that I wanted to explore. And so I was looking for, a person to like give recommendations to, or like, where should I go? Because I'm like, I have no clue. I couldn't find anybody that gave a recommendation. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to start a journey and just go. And I'm just going to record what I do. And at that time, it was a weekly newsletter. And that started in like July of 2019. So every week, 1,500, 2,500 words up until August of last year. Now it's like once a month. But then I started the podcast. This is my 3rd year. And it's just been a blast to share stories, get to know people, and explore some amazing wine.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. You're
Yeah.
the go-to guy for that around here for sure.
I try to be.
There's 1,000 little stories too around here too. It's got to be you have got stuff to work with.
And
Oh,
it's amazing how interconnected everything here is,
It
and
is.
collaborative, and I love it.
I love it
It's
too.
amazing.
I'm going to interview Tama from Lingua Franca next week, and him and Andrew Rikers, know each other. Andrew used to, make wine there, and one story I want to ask Tama is, at one point you and Andrew were just kind of, standing around and looking all over everybody, and it's like, well, where are the adults? And they're like, oh crap, we are the adults. So to bring that story back to him that I heard from Andrew, I love doing all that stuff.
It's amazing how interconnected everybody is here. It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too for Danny here, because he used to sell a lot of wines from wineries around here for
Right.
20 years in Chicago.
I can imagine.
So he goes back a long way he went to Oregon Pinot Camp when?
2001.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
Yep.
there's a lot of full circle things.
Lots of great producers. Bethel Heights,
Patty Green.
and Domaine Serene and Shea and
Yeah.
Bergstrom and
All of them.
Selena,
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Rex Hill. So many great wines we've had from here. And so
I couldn't agree more. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I want to thank you so much for taking the time again. This has been amazing.
Thank you for taking the time to come up.
Of course.
no,
Yeah.
you were the
Thank you.
one of the first people to find Lonesome Rock at all, let alone somebody that does this. So
Well,
glad, glad we met you.
yeah, same here. You can blame Dan and Jean because of the sparkling. I'm like, ooh, Lonesome Rock. I haven't heard of that. So yeah, that was amazing.
They're amazing.
Thank
Yeah, they
you.
are.
Cool.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I
Thanks,
appreciate it.
AJ.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this flavorful voyage through the world of wine on the Weinnotes Podcast. I've been your host and guide, AJ Weinzettel, and it's been an absolute pleasure sharing these captivating stories with you. But alas, like the last sip of a fine vintage, our time together must end. But don't fret, my wine-loving friend. The cellar doors of the Weinnotes Podcast will always remain open, waiting for you to return and explore new conversations, stories, and musings from the captivating people behind the magical world of wine. Before you go, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and don't forget to leave a sparkling 5-star review to help spread the word. Until our glasses clink again, remember to savor life's moments and let the spirit of wine and camaraderie linger on your palate. Cheers, and as always, may your wine glass be full, your heart be light, and your journey be delight.